Steve, instead of talking about the case for a moment, I'd just like to kind of understand from your perspective what may happen to Cook, regardless of what happens in court today. I guess in the sense of, I mean, she's suing Powell now, right? Does Powell have to open an investigation regardless? I guess I wonder, in the same way they did with Clarida or with Kaplan and the like. And would that conceivably result in her leaving the Fed anyway at some point as a result, even if this goes nowhere in terms of what the Trump administration is trying to do right now?
So, David, unfortunately, your attempt to not talk about the case gets you right back to the case, which is one of the issues here is whether or not and how much it should matter to the Fed what happened before Cook joined the Federal Reserve Board. Yes, he can refer this to the IG, but the question is going to be, this is stuff that happened before she got to the Fed. And so whether or not that becomes an issue is a little unclear. That's certainly one of her arguments, that you can't fire somebody for cause, which has to do, they say, with malfeasance or neglect in office for something that happened beforehand. I suppose there are issues about appearance and those questions and whether or not this case is ultimately, by the way, she has not been charged. For many, the evidence is very, very convincing, but she has not been charged. And we've also been unable to confirm that in any of these allegations or referrals from FHFA to the Justice Department, whether or not they've ever spoken to Cook and whether there is an explanation. We do not hear an explanation really from the Cook camp because they don't want to argue the allegations. And if I could, David, I want to take a step back and say, why are we spending so much time on this? Why is this so potentially important? Because on the one hand, we have the independence of the Fed at stake, and that's from the Cook side. From the president's side, they're saying this is in part about the power of the executive to fire someone. So let me show you what the Cook camp, I'm summarizing this myself. They say this case is about the president's power to fire a Fed official over policy, a.k.a. Fed independence. They don't think this is about the allegations, which they point out are not proven. Going to the president's side, he's saying this is about the president's ability to fire someone for cause because he has the authority to do so based on judgments and the allegations. He says this is about the allegations and the unimposed charges. This is very important, David, because one thing we've heard is that we know that Cook has not defended herself specifically against the charges. In the filing this morning by the government, they very much use that against her and say, hey, she's had 5 days to defend herself, hasn't done so, therefore she's unlikely to win the case.
Right. I guess from the market's perspective, Steve, the idea of whether or not she's gone by February of 26, I believe, isn't that when regional presidents need to be renewed? And that could figure importantly as well in terms of President Trump's ability to replace them and basically have a lot more control of the overall board?
Yeah, that's a big, big point here. If you think about it, David, I mean, I think of these Fed presidents as upstanding people, but here's the situation they're in. If the president gets a majority of the Federal Reserve Board, and let's say one of them or two of them or three of them or five of them don't vote for rate cuts consecutively between now and when their job is up in February, well, the majority board of Trump appointees could decide to get rid of one or more of the presidents come February. So that's kind of hanging over their head. I'm not suggesting they'll act that way, but certainly that does raise question about the independence of the Fed and why this whole notion of the president hammering for lower interest rates, suggesting he has authority over this is a critical point.
Really fascinating to imagine the sort of tension that happens the next time there are meetings and conversations among the Board of Governors and the like. Steve, thank you. I know you're monitoring all this progress. We'll get back to you as we get in more headlines.